Welcome to the Old Swedes burial ground. This burial ground dates back to the time when the Swedish settlement began here in Wilmington in 1638. This is one of the oldest and rarest cemeteries in the state of Delaware. 17th century cemeteries that are marked and have records are very rare. When you come to this cemetery, you will find all types of different individuals here, and you will meet those with a variety of stories. Some of the individuals you will meet today have most fascinating stories, and they're not even the ones you would think about from the 17, 18, and 1900s. One of the first individuals you will hear about is Ella Wilson.
I'm Ella Wilson, and I'm the wife of General James Wilson. He fought in the Civil War bravely and became a general during the Spanish-American War in Cuba. After the war, he became the military governor in Matanzas, Cuba, where we had our home. It was beautiful. We had a lovely life there. My daughters and I one morning, in the spring, it's a beautiful spring morning, decided to go out and to complete some errands and to do some shopping and then go visit my husband in his office. We went on a few stops, and then on one of our stops before we went to my husband's office, I stepped on a match, and because my clothing was light and flammable, I went up in flames in a matter of seconds. My daughters and passers-by tried to put the flames out, but I was engulfed in flames. Most of my body was burned. They took me to my bed at home, where I died after 5 hours of agony. I was 53 years old in 1900.
I was married to Reverend Jacob Britton Smith for many years. My husband lived in Delaware in his youth, as did I. His father was on vestry here at Old Swedes Church. After the war, my husband served at different churches in the Northeast, but finally we settled in Raleigh, North Carolina, where my husband founded St. Augustine College, an institution which provided an education to the formerly enslaved. We were blessed with 6 children. Everything went awry one morning in 1872. My husband came to breakfast and announced he felt unwell, and our daughter prepared for him a Seidlitz powder, which he took immediately, and he headed out to the farm. But he returned in even yet a worse state, saying, "I feel I am poisoned." We summoned medical help immediately, but it was of no avail. Within minutes of his last utterance, my husband was dead. A great ordeal ensued after his death. An autopsy found strychnine, a poison used to kill birds and rodents, in my husband's body. And traces of the substance were also found in the Seidlitz powder and the tumbler which he drank from. This was considered suspicious. So my daughter and I were arrested and taken to jail. The accusation that 2 upper-class women had murdered a well-respected man in the community garnered national attention. The scandal was almost more than I could bear. After testimonies of our good character and insufficient evidence, we were let go. The grievous death my husband suffered came to be seen as his own wrongdoing, as he was out and about the farm and may have exposed himself to the poison unknowingly. We do not know with certainty what happened, but this I know. poison killed my husband. Afterwards, I moved to Philadelphia, where my mother-in-law resided, and lived there until my death in 1891. The mystery of my husband's death was never solved.
Isn't this a beautiful setting? It's where my last resting place is, somewhere on these grounds. Hello, I'm Mary Vining, and I had a very auspicious beginning to my life, but it ended in tragedy and despair. I was born into a very wealthy family. I was considered to be exceedingly beautiful, witty, and charming. I was known as the Belle of Delaware during the Revolutionary War, and I had suitors from all over the world. I was living in Philadelphia with my uncle, Caesar Rodney. We, Vinings, were related to everyone who was anyone, and many British soldiers wanted to court me. Now, I was really not interested in courting them, but I needed to be courteous, and I learned many interesting facts that I passed on to my brother to help with the war effort. Marie Antoinette asked Thomas Jefferson if I was as beautiful and witty when he was visiting France as everyone was saying. I had worldwide fame, and individuals like Lafayette were my friends. And during the Revolutionary War, I fell in love with Anthony Wayne, who was one of Washington's favorite generals. Though he did get a bad rep and many people called him Mad Anthony. We were engaged for a very long time because I just wasn't ready to give up being a single person. Unfortunately, before we could marry, Anthony died after a campaign in western Pennsylvania. Some people think it was an appendicitis. Some people think it was complications from gout, but I never knew. I was so upset. I became a recluse, settled just in my house. And at the same time, my brother and his wife died. Not only did my brother spend all of the money that was both his and my inheritance, he left me with his 4 children to look after and no money. I died in 1821 with no funds, not even enough to bury me here with a headstone. So I am buried here, but no one knows exactly where.
Yellow fever repeatedly hit cities and towns along the East Coast between 1793 and 1802. An early wave hit Philadelphia in 1793, and Wilmington actually experienced a commercial boom as people and ships avoiding the city temporarily moved to Wilmington. However, 5 years later, it was Wilmington's turn. The mosquito-borne illness easily made its way around a rigid quarantine imposed by the local Board of Health in the fall of 1798. By November, 252 local deaths have been reported. These include several people buried at Old Swedes. The deaths we have been able to confirm are Elizabeth Way, Samuel Landers, and John Rice. But the number of burials at Old Swedes that year was about twice as much as usual. A final but less severe outbreak of yellow fever would follow in 1802. The 1918 pandemic resembles our current world even more eerily. Delaware's outbreak of the influenza came in the fall of 1918. In late September, confirmed cases in Wilmington rose from 400 to 2,400 in just a couple of days. The State Board of Health responded with a total shutdown of the state to prevent the spread of the illness on October 4th. A newspaper soon reported that doctors and nurses were almost in a state of collapse from physical exhaustion and could not handle all of the cases they have, and that so numerous were the deaths that gravediggers found it impossible to open graves in time for the funerals. The outbreak began to subside after a full month, and after 1,223 people had died around the state, almost entirely from pneumonia developed during influenza infection. At Old Swedes, those who died of the influenza include Charles Roberts Jr., who was aged 13, Hannah Willis, who was 82, Elsie Briggs, who was 20, and Cora Monges, who was 88. And we should also mention that there are many burials at Old Swedes in 1918 where the patient was listed as dying from pneumonia. Since pneumonia was considered the cause of death, influenza was not always listed on the death certificate.